Hi everyone, my name's John. I'm back with another book review. Wanted to talk to you about a book that I read with Vin, who I'm in a group with. He's the founder of Historathon, an ongoing event. We're in the third year of it now, Historathon 2025. I'm one of the co-hosts. And in December, we decided to read this for one of the sort of last quarters of the year, where we read everything from 1820 to the present day. And this is a book of everyone's favorite political philosophy. This is Liberalism in Dark Times, The Liberal Ethos in the 20th Century by Joshua L. Cherniss, put out by Princeton University Press. Vin has already talked a little bit about this in a video where he wrapped up everything that he read in December. And he said that I might have enjoyed it a little bit more than him. Maybe that's true, but that's probably true. But I have my criticisms of the book too, which largely align with his. So if you've seen that video, or if you know of the book or have your own ideas, definitely leave me a note below. Liberalism can be hard to get excited about. It's one of the underlying problems of the book. While most of us want constitutional protections built into our government, the protection of human rights, democratic representation, these ideas don't really make for the most compelling political slogans. They don't really look good on a protest board. This is one of the problems that Joshua Cherniss, who's the associate professor of government at Georgetown University, addresses in the book, Liberalism in Dark Times, which came out from Princeton University Press in 2022. He takes up five thinkers, mostly four, but he talks about Weber a little bit. Max Weber at the very beginning, but mostly sticks to Albert Camus, Raymond Aron, Reinhold Niebuhr, and Isaiah Berlin, and examines how they embody what Joshua Cherniss calls tempered liberalism, and I'll get into that in a second. For Cherniss, tempered liberalism is an approach to politics exercised through certain features of character and disposition, like intellectual modesty, openness to engage in good faith dialogues with those with whom you disagree, skepticism, pluralism, moderation. This isn't an exhaustive list of liberal principles. Still, it suggests an ethics of politics, not just a set of political goals or ideologies, which you could call liberal, but attitudes that need to be embodied while you're aiming for those liberal goals. So what he's doing here is making a distinction between the actual policies that might be called liberal and having a liberal attitude in pursuing those policies. So that attitude embodied by modesty, engaging with people who disagree with you, pluralism, moderation, etc. When tempered liberalism is put into practice, these attitudes serve as guardrails against illiberalism, like for example, militant nationalism that contributed to World War I and the quick descent into totalitarianism that came a generation after that. All of Cherniss's subjects react in different ways to the rise of political extremism, whether it's Isaiah Berlin's boyhood experience during the Russian Revolution in 1917, Camus' boyhood in colonial French Algeria, or Raymond Aron's bemusement at the growing hold communism had on European intellectuals in the years following World War II. Unlike his friend and fellow communist Jean-Paul Sartre, whose communism was fanatical, I guess you could say, Camus' embrace of the Opération Légale, which is the French term for the purge of French collaborationists, who were operating within the Vichy regime after the fall of Vichy France. Camus' ideas about that purge were much more careful and cautious than Sartre's were. Reinhold Niebuhr is unique among the choices here, Cherniss' choices, because he uses an explicitly Christian moral framework to undergird his ideas about human nature. Niebuhr believed hubris was one of the root problems of human freedom, and therefore one of the root problems for the maintenance of human liberalism, too. He simultaneously took the position that violence was necessary, even going so far as to criticize Gandhi, while also admitting that sometimes violence turned us into the same people that we wanted to fight against. I could list more examples, but the pattern is clear as you read the book. Cherniss's 5 sort of liberal exemplars avoid both fanaticism and utopianism, while being cautiously optimistic about the limits of political possibility. Other than the occasional nod to the contemporary political climate, where he talks about, how this is so pertinent to American politics today, the last thing I'll be honest, the last thing I want when reading a book about early to mid-century, 20th century political theory is to hear Donald Trump's name plopped into the middle of it. Take whatever lessons away you want from the book, but I think that's another book I want. And he doesn't really do it often, and he doesn't go into detail about Donald Trump at all. But this is about political history, and the Trump administration, the first one and the second one, are very, 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 very recent and current. So I'm glad that that this could have easily turned into a screed, but I'm glad it did not. There's always a time for the application of political ideas. At its heart, this is history, even if that history is recent history. The 5 thinkers that Cherniss examines teach us something the history of modern democracy has repeatedly borne out, I think. And it is that liberalism is never a political given. Anyone who thinks that their vision of a healthy polity is inevitable is bound to be disappointed. Just take Francis Fukuyama, for example. He had this Pollyanna-ish idea after the fall of communism that every country in the world would stumble over this dominant stability of liberal democracy in the face of the fall of communism, and that quickly fell flat on its face. Each generation has to do its due diligence, I guess, is the takeaway here, to adhere to the fundamental principles of liberal ideas. But that's never enough, because liberal ends can always be instituted with illiberal means, right? That distinction between the behavior, the personality traits that you use that are liberal, and then the policy measures. He thinks that both are important. He tries to hitch one onto the other. What these thinkers emphasize is the importance of the temperedness of liberal ideas and policy. Its tendency towards forbearance, open-mindedness, caution, skepticism, uncertainty, altruism, empathy, ethical pluralism, and how encouraging this temperance is vitally important to the future of the democratic project. So, a really interesting book. The ideas from person to person, the takeaways can be a little bit repetitive because they tend to sometimes come to the same conclusion about their own circumstances. You have to reject this utopian measure, but also reject totalitarianism, so you're left somewhat in a moderate position, which, like I said, moderation is one of the things that defines liberalism for Joshua Cherniss, at least. This is Liberalism in Dark Times, the liberal ethos in the 20th century, by Joshua L. Cherniss. Let me know if you have any thoughts in the comments, and please do me a favor and try to keep contemporary politics out of the discussion. The last thing I want to read when I go to our comment section is what we're dealing with now. So I will talk to everyone later, and I'll see you soon. Bye.